Welcome to the Feds, insiders bringing accountability, integrity, and reform to a broken bureaucracy. At Feds for Freedom, we value constructive dissent and healthy debate. The views and opinions shared in today's episode are those of the speaker alone and do not express the views or opinions of the U.S. government or any other employer.
Welcome back to this week's episode of The Feds. I am Stephanie Weidel. Before we begin, please go ahead and like, comment, subscribe to, and share our podcasts. Go ahead and check out our new and improved website and donate towards our mission at fedsforfreedom.org. Today, I am joined by Kristi Dobbs, a pediatric dental hygienist who was severely injured by the COVID-19 shot and who is now on the board and secretary for React19. Welcome, Kristi. It's wonderful to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Kristi, why don't you tell us about yourself and where you were in life in 2020?
So in 2020, towards the end of the year, COVID wasn't even known to most people. It was just this new big bad wolf virus that was coming about. Where I was at in life, I was a healthy, active 39-year-old woman at the time. I worked in a very busy pediatric dental practice. I mean, we saw 80 patients a day. It was no problem for me to see 13 to 15 patients myself. I was raising 4 children of my own. My husband and I have been married now for over 20 years. At the time, my children were younger. I had a 4-year-old little boy, and then I had 6, 10, and 12-year-old daughters. So very active mom, very active in my career. Love camping, hiking, kayaking. I mean, I was a very active, busy woman. We're a very athletic family. So rolling forward, the end of 2020, just to give you a little glimpse into my personal life story, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. At that time, any virus that anyone with cancer could obtain during their cancer care was life-threatening. So as COVID was still coming about towards the end of 2020, early 2021, we were starting to get really worried because not only could she, die or get very ill from pneumonia or strep or staph infection, here's this new virus called COVID, and millions of people were dying from it. So it was very crucial for us to keep ourselves healthy and, of course, our 4 children healthy. They were in public school at the time, which, it's just a petri dish. So at the end of 2020, we had decided that we would go on ahead and start homeschooling our kids, which we did. I kept them at home. My dental practice was closed down in March was it 2020 when COVID, or was it 2021?
It was 2020.
Okay, so see, then I guess I need to back up on my story because my mother-in-law got sick at the end of 2019 with her acute myeloid leukemia. So when school was actually canceled, it was spring break of 2020. So my apologies to go back on the story with correct dates. So we decided to homeschool back in 2020 of March when school was closed down. So we homeschooled all the rest through 2020 and then early 2021. Which is when my mother-in-law went in for her bone marrow transplant. So early 2021 rolls around, and I get a call from the local health department that the dental professionals will be coming up and able to receive their COVID-19 vaccine. And I actually was very elated. So my mother-in-law was up in St. Louis, Missouri, at Barnes Hospital. And, very distinguished. Washington University runs the hospital area that's up there, very distinguished hospital. And, I talked with the nurse practitioner and she was like, you really need to try to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Not, just for your mother-in-law, but for your family. And so I contemplated it. Every morning you'd wake up on the TV, the news would say a grim new milestone with, COVID statistics. You'd see Dr. Anthony Fauci's face on the screen saying, you need to do this for your country and for your community. It's safe and effective. So the more I heard that, the more I started to believe I have to do this and I have to do it for my family. not just my community and my country, but I have to do it to protect myself and my family. And I would never, ever tell my mother-in-law that this was her fault, because it was not. She had no control over the fact that she was diagnosed with a very rare form of acute myeloid leukemia. It really was more of a coercion of the doctors at the hospital telling me to do this. So January 18th, 2021 was my day that I was assigned to go to the COVID-19 vaccine clinic that they had at the local hospital here in my town. I live in Joplin, Missouri. Most people are familiar with Joplin because the huge tornado came through here 11 years ago. That's us. I mean, that's still the town that I live in. Local hospital, went in to have my vaccine, sat down. They gave me a brief little pamphlet of paperwork. It did actually have some of the active ingredients that were in the vaccine at that time. Had a little code, QR code for me to scan if I had any issues after the vaccination. I sat down in the chair. I received my vaccine promptly at 9 a.m. I still distinctly remember texting my husband after I received it, and I said it was easier than the flu shot. I didn't feel anything when I got the vaccine, but it was less than 5 minutes later I had stood up. I went over to the reception counter for them to schedule my second appointment, and I started feeling this odd, warm, tingling sensation down my left arm where I had just received the vaccine. And at first I thought, well, it's just, the medicine kind of working its way down with gravity. Didn't think anything of it. Went and sat down in the monitoring station, which they were monitoring patients for about 15 minutes at this time. And I started having this weird, clammy feeling kind of, from underneath my chin all the way down, extreme heart palpitations. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch my breath. I could stand up just long enough to tell one of the nurses, I said, I don't feel very good. And I crashed back down inside of my chair. They sent over the blood pressure, pulse ox, heart rate monitor, hooked me all up. And my blood pressure, of course, I'm in a panic at this point thinking, what's happening to me? I just remember it being stroke worthy. As a dental professional, I know I'm not in medicine, but we still take blood pressures in the dental office. I've been trained with blood pressure readings since the time I was in dental hygiene school. I knew my blood pressure was skyrocketed. It was like 180 over 160, something ridiculous. And I thought, Kristi, get a hold of yourself. What are you doing? Because I thought maybe I actually was having like a panic attack or something, which is what they were trying to convince me I was doing. They said I was having a panic attack or a hot flash. And then they proceeded to give me a Dr. Pepper to make me feel better because they thought maybe my blood sugar was low. And I had already had breakfast that morning. So it was this huge conglomeration of like people thinking, well, what's going on with this woman? Instead, it was like, well, did you eat? You're having a panic attack. Well, maybe it's just a hot flash. I'm like, I'm 39. I'm not going through menopause yet. I've had every vaccine that I've ever needed to have in order to practice as a dental hygienist. And it's a plethora. You have to prove vaccination status to get into dental hygiene school. Once you're in dental hygiene school, if you are low, like I was with like my MMR, and maybe it was my Hep B, I had to be reboosted for all of those after my titer was low. I've had every flu shot every single year. I have never had a reaction to any vaccine. And this is the reason why people have tried to label me anti-vax. I have had every vaccine I have ever needed to have since the day I was born. And I've never had any issue. I've never questioned any vaccines until the COVID vaccine. So I'll get back to my story since I've kind of ranted off, and you kind of have to bear with me because unfortunately, I will say one of the side effects of the vaccine is brain fog. And sometimes I'll be talking and I will just straight up stop and I'll forget what I was talking about or where I was. So I promise I will try to stay on track. Go back to the hospital where the vaccine clinic was. They monitored me for an extra 30 minutes after my episode. It probably took a good 10 or 15 minutes for my blood pressure to finally come back down. And at that point, basically all they did is they opened up my pamphlet of information that they gave me and they said, you should probably scan this QR code and file your reaction with vSafe. So I did while I was there, told them everything that happened with my reaction. And then I didn't get a text message back from them until that night. And it was basically like, how was your visit today? And how are your symptoms now? And you just text back to like a robot, and it doesn't send you anything back for days sometimes. So I never had any follow-up from anyone there at the hospital. Nobody asked for my information to, tell me to come back to follow up for anything. I was feeling better after the whole 45 minutes of monitoring. So I said, I think I'm okay to go now. And I was just a little, I guess, still uneasy because of the reaction that I had. And I didn't want to blame it on the vaccine yet. I kept trying to say, well, maybe I was having a panic attack. Well, maybe I was having a hot flash. I've never had those before, but maybe that's what those feel like. And so I dismissed it. That evening and the next day, I had what they said in the pamphlet that you would experience, basic flu-like symptoms, just very sore arm. And your arm's pretty tender after you have a flu vaccine. But I mean, this was really sore. I couldn't lift my left arm at all. I couldn't use it. Like I said, flu-like symptoms, but the fatigue was debilitating. I mean, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was just tired. And then by the third day, I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought our bed was vibrating. And I thought, well, it's never done this before, but maybe the heater was off. Or, again, I'm making excuse after excuse. Well, maybe the kids were running through the house or something, And it wasn't until I actually got out of bed and I was drinking my coffee and I picked it up with my left hand and my hand was shaking profusely. And I thought, well, that's weird. Maybe I've drank too much coffee now. Again, excuses. And it wasn't until that fourth day that I woke up that morning and then now both hands had tremors in them. And I got scared. I got really scared. And I ended up having this odd periscapular pain, again, left side where I had my injection. The periscapular is kind of where the scapula bone in your back, when you reach back and you kind of feel that right in the tuck of where the bone is, the muscle tissue there. I had this really intense vibration. And the only way I can explain it is that I was stuck in a vibrating chair, or like there was a TENS unit stuck inside that muscle just on full blast. And it was creating these vibrations down my arms, or what the medical world calls tremors. And I still have them to date. They're not as bad. I could barely pick up a coffee mug. I have videos of myself trying to type on the computer and I can't because my hands are shaking so bad. And this cascaded, from day 3 on, everything just got worse and worse and worse and exacerbated. So the periscapular pain, the vibrations, the paresthesias, I was having numbness into my face, kind of like a burning sensation. My legs, I couldn't feel pinpricks or needles on my legs. And it wasn't until February 7th was the first day that I was able to get in to see a neurologist. And even before I saw the neurologist, I was in the emergency room twice. Unfortunately, again, here's a weird qualm of my story. My primary care physician had passed away earlier in the year, not from COVID, from a cancer that he had obtained. So I hadn't seen my primary care physician at all. And here I have to go and see this new primary care physician. And she's looking at me like I'm a crazy person because she can physically see my tremors. She can hear my voice vibrated really bad because of the vibration. And I mean, it literally sounded like this when I was talking. I was like a robot. And she wanted to label me with anxiety, which unfortunately is the case for a lot of vaccine injured. But anyways, it took me until February 7th to where I could finally get in to see a neurologist. And they basically just wanted to laugh at me too. There was no, oh, let's run an MRI, let's run some blood work. And I will tell you, every vaccine injured has had blood work. They've had MRIs. They've had ultrasounds. They've had every scan, every blood work that every Western medicine doctor could run on them. And they all come back normal every time.
Absolutely.
I did have high CRP. I did have blood clotting factor and low potassium. So I did have a couple abnormal labs, but that was about it. My ANA was fine. They originally were going to try to diagnose me with MS because they did see a few things on the MRI scan. But when they went back to look at my other MRI scan that I had just had a few years prior, They were like, it looks, within normal limits of what you had just from a few years ago. Um, and then basically, like I said, I was at wit's end thinking that nobody was going to help me. All they wanted to do was just throw anti-anxiety medicine. I mean, Ativan. I went to the emergency room and all they could do was say, oh, we'll give you some Ativan. I didn't even see a doctor either. I saw a nurse practitioner, which I'm okay with that. My dad's a nurse practitioner. I would fully, give him complete control over seeing me for an appointment. But I never had an ER doctor, a neurologist, no one come in when I was in the emergency room. Only a nurse practitioner that offered me Ativan and then dismissed me. That was it.
At what point were you told that this could possibly be a vaccine injury? At what point did you get to that point?
So, in all of the midst of this, like I said, my mother-in-law was still up in St. Louis, and it was my turn to go take care of her. So my husband, myself, and then my brother-in-law all took turns going up to St. Louis to care for her. And it was my turn to go. So I went, and I was still in excruciating pain. I was in this realm of, vaccine injury, but still blaming it on things. I went to see a chiropractor up there because of this periscapular pain. And they didn't question anything at all. I had told them I was just vaccinated. I gave them my whole story. They went on ahead and adjusted me, and I got worse. So it wasn't until I came back home to Joplin to see my hometown chiropractor that when I went in to see her, because we went to high school together, she's known me for many years. She knows my personality. She knows my medical history. And she's like, Kristi, what happened to you? She could see I was shaking. She could see that my blood pressure was still extremely high. I mean, I was very hypertensive still. And she said, what did you do? And I said, well, I got the COVID vaccine January 18th. And she goes, oh my goodness. She goes, I think this is a vaccine injury. We're going to have to report this. And that was the first time that the connection truly was made, because I had someone else on my side, a medical type provider that was saying, something's wrong with you, dude. Like, I know you, and I know how you are in life, and this is not right.
Hmm.
That's
Let me
when
ask,
the little aha moment came.
if the injury had happened days or weeks or months later, would you have been able to connect the dots?
No, I would not. I mean, to be honest, again, I trusted my governing entities that this was safe and effective. So I really and truly believed that this was safe and effective. The little research that I could do about the vaccine, and I researched about a week before my appointment. And then the night before, I also researched again just to see if there was anything added for ingredients, anything that would kind of flag my brain. And nothing flagged me at all. So I had no issue going in and rolling up my sleeve to get vaccinated. And I probably would have done it weeks and even months afterwards, because I will tell you, as of today, April 25th, 2025, we still have vaccine injured persons coming to our support groups because they've gotten their 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th booster. So there's still people coming to us and finding us because they have just never either connected the dots and put the puzzle together, or the puzzle is finally coming together and they're saying, oh my goodness, what
Do you
I've done
think
this myself now.
we're going to get to
Yeah.
the healing part of your story, but can you find healing if you haven't even identified the source of the injury? Do you think that's even possible?
It's really hard. There's lots of components to healing. There's the mental, there's the physical, there's the spiritual part of healing. And I don't think until you come to the realization that you, A, are injured, and B, that there's no one out there that's coming to help you, that you finally connect the dots. And it took me a very long time to heal. I went through very dark, very low valleys. And I'm a Christian. I believe in the Lord. I know where I'm going when this world ends. But I got to a really dark and scary point in life where I couldn't take the pain anymore. I couldn't take the gaslighting and the dismissal from doctors. Nobody would recognize what was going on with me other than my chiropractor. She was behind me the whole time. But when you hear it over and over and over again, that you're just a silly little girl, you have anxiety, you start to believe those things. And then you think, I'm never going to get fixed. I'm just broken. It's tough. You have to put all of these components together. And if you don't have the right people in your life or the right providers in your life, it's really hard to put the puzzle pieces together to make yourself whole again once you've been broken.
Absolutely. So, what happened once your chiropractor friend said, I think this is vaccine injury? How did you start going about finding healing?
Okay, so again, components. The very first thing I did when I got home, well, actually, so that same day that I saw her, she sent me to the emergency room. Again, that was the second visit that I had to the emergency room where I saw the nurse practitioner. They wanted to just give me Advil. I said, okay, this is the second emergency room visit that I've had. I've seen a neurologist. They're all basically making fun of me, kind of gaslighting me, giving me, these s- basically like bunk diagnosis that I knew I didn't have, just to kind of appease me, make me feel better. Um, so what I did is I came home and I just researched. I put in COVID vaccine injury. Of course, nothing came up. This is still very early on, February 2021. But an article came up that said there are no neurologic adversities with the COVID-19 vaccine, which is very ironic because that was what was happening to me. It was all neuro for me. And I can kind of go into a lot of my symptoms here in just a little bit. But in this article, at the very bottom, you could put in comments. And there was a comment from a retired gastroenterologist. She would be just fine with me giving you her name. Her name is Dr. Denise Hertz. Again, she's retired now, but she had just received her vaccine prior to retirement. And what a world she was introduced to. Was just getting ready to finally retire from years of being a prominent gastroenterologist in California. And she's injured by the vaccine too. Just stepping into retirement. Let's get, thrown into this whole world of loopiness too. But in the comment, she had written down that she was felt that she was vaccine injured and kind of gave a brief little synopsis of what her injuries were. And literally, by the grace of God, she put her email address and they published her comment, which I really thought was, it was good for me, but I thought it was interesting because they really weren't publishing many comments if it was against their agenda. I emailed her. I was not the first person to email her. Actually, Brianne Dressen, who is one of the co-founders of React19, was the other who had contacted Denise. So it was just us three. We had finally found each other and we had finally given confirmation that, yes, this is vaccine injury. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. And so we were in this email thread, on a daily basis, talking with each other, trying to console each other, telling each other, okay, we're not crazy. This is real. I always say we're made of the same cloth, but we were torn in different pieces. So, like Denise had more of the myocarditis, chest pain, but she still had the paresthesia, numbness, tingling of her face, arms, legs. Brianne is a totally different. She was an AstraZeneca clinical trial patient. So she was vaccine injured way before Denise and I. Denise was injured December 2020. I was January 2021. Brianne was October, November of 2020. So she had been lying in darkness for months before she even found Denise and I. And her story is very unique. You can find it. She's in a book called Worth the Shot. Yes, thank you, Brianne. I gave a free shout out for you if you guys decide to publish that. But you've got to read it. It gives you encounters of Brianne's story. It kind of tells a little bit about Denise and I and how we all connected. But to get back to that, so we had this little email thread going. First, it started with 3 of us, then 3 grew to 4, then 4 grew to 8, 8 grew to 16, 16 grew to 32. And we got so big that we said, okay, we can't keep up with this email thread. We've got to do something else. So we decided to form a Facebook group. And we knew that we were going to be very controversial. So we kept the Facebook group open for about 2 weeks, and then we shut it down and we made it just private. So when we turned it into the private group, we basically were just waiting for people to kind of reach out to us through the email thread still, and we just kind of plug them into the group. Our group grew And I have a screenshot of it by 400% in 1 month of all the vaccine injured that were coming to our group. Yeah.
Ugh.
And then, so we had this group going. This is literally like the little pea-sized amount of the very first starts of React19 is just this little Facebook group. And we called ourselves the COVACE family group because we were the COVID vaccine adverse side effect family group. And I wanted to add that family in there because we were a new family. We were creating this new family of COVID vaccine injured, helping the injured because the medical community abandoned us. Our communities abandoned us. Some people, their families and friends abandoned them. They had no one except just this little group to conversate with each other, to talk about, well, I took this medicine and it helped. Well, I took this medicine and it hurt. We were able to give each other the kind of good information that we needed, the feedback.
Yes.
And then this Facebook group is what kind of led into in June of 2021, Senator Ron Johnson had found out about us through Ken Rutgers. So Ken and Cheryl were part of his initial roundhouse table conversation with Bree and Steph DeGary. And this is when our very first, we thought we're going to have our first big break. Senator Ron Johnson wants to have us at a roundtable discussion. Somebody's going to finally listen to us. And so we came up with this verbiage that we want to be seen, heard, and believed because I wanted people to see that I was a real person. You can touch me. I wanted to be heard. I wanted someone to hear my story. And then I wanted them to believe me. But this whole roundhouse table of discussion basically just turned us into silly little women again because it was all women sitting up at the table. We all, and I hate to say it, but yes, we all cried. And I know that crying sometimes is a sign of weakness, but in that moment, it was a sign of strength because guess what? What people don't know is right before we had to give interviews, we had to watch a video of some of the debilitating videos that we had sent in a compilation. And when you watch that video of people that can't walk, that are crying in bed, that are having GI in tubes placed in, it tugs at your heartstrings, not only as a woman, but as a mom. We had little Maddie DeGary, who was 10 years old at the time of this. If that doesn't make you mad, then I guess you just don't have blood running through your veins. So after the Ron Johnson roundtable discussion, that's when we knew that even our country was failing us and we had to continue to do something on our own. So we initiated, it was C19 Vax Reactions website. We had an email associated with that. We had droves of people coming daily, monthly. And then that from there, because Ken Rutgers and his brother were kind of running that website, we're just unable to do it. And then that's whenever React19 kind of stepped in. It was Brianne, myself, Denise, and then Joel Walskog, who was at the second roundhouse table discussion with Senator Ron Johnson, came in. And then that's kind of how the inception of React19 was started. We knew we were COVID vaccine injured that needed to help the COVID vaccine injured. And that's what we're still doing today.
Wow, it's an incredible story. So what kind of physical healing have you found, and as well as others within React19? What kind of healing have you found in the past couple of years, if any?
I will say, again, I'm one of the very lucky few. I was able to heal a lot faster than everyone else. I mean, we do still have some very bedridden, we have patients that are homeless, unable to get medical care. They lost their jobs. Their family has ditched them because they just haven't believed them. I mean, very dire situations. So I feel bad sometimes being as lucky as I am. But I will tell you, after Western medicine failed me, and again, I was injured January 2021. It was September 2021 when, well, I should back up. It was August 2021 when, this is a very low story. My children started school back in the fall, and I was at home by myself. My husband was at work. My kids were at school. I was at home by myself. And I was at a very low point in life. And I contemplated suicide many times. I was no good to my children. I was no good to my husband. I was no good to my family or my community is what, I kept telling myself. And it wasn't until I reached that really low point where I was about to do something that literally the grace of God stepped in and said, it's not your time. It's not your time. You've got more things that you need to do. That I stopped and I said, what are you doing, Kristi? What are you doing? And I will say there is a mental component to the vaccine injury. Like I said, mine was all neuro. But there was a mental side of it that was really affecting me. And so I got on my phone, I Google searched naturopath. If Western medicine can't help me and they're going to try to kill me, I need somebody else. Go ahead.
And the mental part of it, is it because Western medicine can't touch it? Is it because you are being called crazy? Is it because nobody was giving you the time of day within the government or within the medical community?
I think all of the above. And I haven't really touched on it on my story yet, but I was actually a patient at the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health. I reached out to them very early on. We kind of found them collectively as a group, told them that we were vaccine injured. And I thought, finally, we've got the National Institute of Health. We've got these neuroimmunologists, fancy name behind them. They're going to help us. And they dumped us too. So when you've got world-renowned doctors saying that they want to help you and they're going to try to fix you and figure out what's going on, and they're ditching you too, you hit a really low in life because there's nobody there to help you. I'm really lucky. I do have a very supportive husband. Again, I know I have little kids, and sometimes I think to myself, Kristi, how did you think those evil thoughts? You need to be here to raise your family. But when you think that the world is against you, it puts some really dark thoughts in your mind. And I have to say, I mean, I really do hate it, but a lot of people have had the same issue that are vaccine injured. And unfortunately, some have succumbed to suicide, or some have resorted to flying to Switzerland and, death with dignity. It's just a really unfortunate part of all of this.
Would you briefly discuss the specifics of your reaching out to NIH for help?
Sure. Yeah. So it was late February 2021 that Denise had found an email address for Dr. Avendra Nath, who is with the NIH. He's in, like I said, the neuroimmunology department of that branch. And he wanted to see us. He wanted to see patients at the NIH. And at the time, when they very first found me, they had asked if I could come. And I said, well, let me see if I can make arrangements for my children, because I knew that it wasn't going to be just a weekend, fly out, let's take some blood and, run some tests. I knew it was probably going to be at least a week, if not a month long type of procedure. I came to the determination that it was not in my best interest to fly out to the NIH, that I should just stay home and I would do the telehealth that they were offering. So March 2021, I had my first visit with Dr. Avendra Nath's partner. Her name is, it's hard to say, Faranza Safavi. Dr. Safavi is what we call her. We called her Dr. S a lot. And so I had my first visit with her. It was a great visit. She believed me. She gave me information on the phone that said, do not get another COVID vaccine and do not let your children get vaccinated. Because if you've had this type of reaction, think of what could happen to your kids. I mean, she gave me lots of insight. For the first time, I felt seen, I felt heard, and I felt believed. Those were the three things that we were reaching out for months. And I thought was on a solid path of help. They asked for my blood. I sent them my blood. They said that they were going to run tests for autoantibodies and then keep some of the serum to do some further testing in the future. Again, I was glad to help. I was glad to step up and do it. But it was about July of 2021. So about, 4 months later, the tune changed from, we're going to help you. We want to do a prepent. We're going to put you in a study. We're going to this, we're going to that, to, I'm really sorry about your diseases. There's nothing else I can do. Click. And that was it. Radio silence. And I never heard anything since then. And I've emailed twice and no response.
Are these people still employed at NIH?
To my understanding, yes. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Uh, Secretary Kennedy, that's somebody to get out. And Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Bhattacharya, that's someone to get out of the NIH right there. Go ahead.
Well, and again, I don't, I'm not going to be here to tell whose jobs need to be cut and who needs to be. I just really thought that we were finally going to have somebody with some backbone, with some credentials behind them that could say, these people are vaccine injured. We need to look into this. This isn't just a handful of people. We've got a good chunk of people that could get into this study. Like I said, our Facebook group grew by 400%. I could have sent them hundreds of people very quickly, very easily.
The doctors that you were in touch with, they were committing fraud at the same time because they were denying help to those. They knew something.
Right.
It's obvious they knew something because they said, "Oh, we can't help you anymore." So
Well,
why did they say that?
well, two things. The first thing is, and I did not know this until after I had already committed to be in the study. I signed all the paperwork. I did everything that, committed myself to this. I didn't realize that the NIH was actually funding the Moderna vaccine. So you've got the fox guarding the hen house. And we were little eggs inside of the hen house that they needed to sit on and protect for a little while, figure out what was going on with us before too much information got out. I really think they were kind of infiltrating our circle so that they could kind of know what was going on so that they could be ready for some sort of statement or excuse or some sort of cover up for it. I mean, that's my honest opinion. That's just Kristi's opinion. I'm not giving you any opinion of anybody else other than what I've experienced and what I think the issue is. I forgot I was going to say my second thing, but here we go. My brain has forgotten again. But I mean, that's really the gist of it is, and I didn't know that. If I would have known that before signing up for their study, I don't think I would have done it. I mean, you've got Big Pharma's protection over a government entity.
Corruption right there. It's like, okay, so in the fall, you started looking for a naturopath. Yeah. Where did you end up?
Sorry. So to go back to that story, again, I was at my wit's end. I was ready to go. I mean, I didn't want to experience the debilitating pain that I had every day. And when I say mine was more neuro, it was the tremors in my hands. How is a dental hygienist ever supposed to go back to work if their hands don't function? That was one of the biggest blows to myself. I mean, that was a part of me. I studied. I went to school for a very long time to get my degree. And how am I ever going to work again? It's not that I had to, because my husband, he takes care of our family. He straight up told me, you don't have to go back to work. Take care of yourself. You don't need to do that. But I still knew that in the back of my mind, I'm only 39, 40 years old. I'm going to have to go back to work. My kids are going to grow up and be out of the house someday. I can't just be a stay-at-home mom forever. So that was a big blow. The debilitating fatigue. I'm telling you, I would get to a point during the day, I would have to sit and I couldn't do anything else. I physically could not do anything else. I said before that one of the things I was diagnosed with was the blood clotting disorders. And TMI men, sorry about this, but I was one of those women with very heavy, clotted menstrual cycles. I'll leave it at that. I mean, some of the stuff that was coming out of me should not have come out of me. And I know that it was vaccine induced because I've never had that my whole entire life. Muscle spasms, shaking, heart palpitations, wore a heart monitor for 2 weeks. I am having cardiac episodes, but the cardiologist doesn't want to do anything because of my age until I get older and more start to happen. Then I'll have to be placed on some form of medication for that. Pseudo seizures. I was having, so I would lay in bed at night, and when my brain would finally start to try to fall asleep, which was really hard, I don't think I slept hardly at all that first month or two, maybe 30 minutes at a time, and it was in and out of consciousness. I had questioned that I was having pseudo seizures or convulsions at night because I would wake myself up going like this. But when my 6-year-old daughter, my husband was out of town, he was staying with my mother-in-law in St. Louis, and I had my 6-year-old come and lay in bed with me. And she started shaking me. She was like, "Mom, you're making the whole bed vibrate." That's when I knew that I was having the nocturnal convulsions. Um, again, really heavy legs, uh, uh, really stammered speech. The vibrating in my chest was causing very stammered. I couldn't find my words. The mental clarity was gone. Like I said, mine was more neuro, which I think, thank goodness, the brain wants to heal itself. But I've also found, and I will wrap my story back into where I should start, through functional medicine, that the gut is our second brain. And if our gut is having issues, then our brain is going to have issues, and the whole body is off kilter if we can't get those nerve endings firing. So found a great functional medicine doctor who finally, again, would listen to me, told me I was not crazy. Um, we worked on my gut health to start. And I thought, oh, dude, changing my gut health and my diet is not going to help this vaccine reaction. But I will tell you, after 2 weeks of going gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, low histamine, I was starting to feel a little better with mental clarity. Some of the internal vibrations, that periscapular pain, was starting to feel better. Well, I sent my sent a stool sample in for microbiome. I was completely depleted of everything, and that has since been some of the studies that have come through with vaccine injury is that it does, and even with active COVID viral infection, it just depletes the gut bacteria. So gut health was my first start. Then some supplementation of NAC and quercetin. He also put me on it's called Natovena. It's a nattokinase supplement that helps with natural blood thinning. So once we got the blood thinned, once we got some supplements on board to kind of help with mitochondrial dysfunction and some of the small fiber neuropathy, then I started to feel better. So it was, October and November, I was starting to think, okay, I'm going to live through this. I'm going to survive. And then December, January of 2021 and January of 2022 is when I really started to feel a lot better. And I just continued with functional medicine ever since. And I'm still not 100%. I say most days I'm about 80 to 90. Sometimes, and again, it's just with my menstrual cycles, it creates a lot of histamine reaction. And so definitely that time of the month is when I notice that some of the mental issues will come back, headaches, the fatigue. And it'll take me down about 75%. But you know what? When this initially happened, I didn't think I'd ever even be at 75%. So I'm very lucky to be where I am today.
Has this changed the way that you're doing life right now?
Oh, I have gone down so many rabbit holes, so many rabbit holes. My eyes have been opened. I mean, unfortunately, my eyes had to be opened uh, through an injury, through deceit. But I'm so much better off for it now today. My lifestyle has changed. My diet has changed. My outlook in life has changed. Um, just by simply eliminating Western medicine and finding this newfound functional medicine and functional health aspect. Um, I'm not going to dismiss Western medicine. Hey, if I need a trip to the ER for something, I'm not going to say, don't take me there. Take me to my functional medicine doctor. I'll still do it. I know that there's still a need for it. But when something like this has happened and there's paid doctors at hospitals and clinics that here's what I tell my patients in the dental office nowadays, because I have now found functional medicine dentistry, which is where I'm working into. And this whole journey has led me to where I am today. So I know the doors were opened for a certain reason, but this is what I tell my patients when they come into the office. Western medicine, even general dentists that are still in the general dentistry realm that aren't more holistic or functional health related, they just see things in black and white. So they see someone come in, they look at the paper and they say, it's this, give them this. It's that, give them this. And I hate to be that way, but that's just the way that they're trained. And even the dentist that I work for, he'll tell you the same thing in dental school. It's like, you see this, you do this procedure. You do that, you do this procedure. Same thing with like root canals. We do root canals in dentistry, and we've been doing root canals for many years, but it's the only part of our body that dies and we try to save. Why do we do that? And people have health issues because of failed root canals and bacteria that's trapped behind. And the same thing happens in the medical world too. I'm just a little more intuitive of dentistry. And so I do think that functional medicine has its realm in vaccine injury for sure, because those doctors are very independent. They're very self-thinking. They'll look inside the gray area to try to find the root cause. And even if they can't find the root cause, they're still going to at least try. I did genetic testing with my functional medicine doctor. I did the gut biome testing, all the blood work, all the extras. And it wasn't until I did that we did find out I had small fiber neuropathy. I have dysautonomia. I have mast cell activation syndrome. And those are some of the debilitating things that the vaccine has left me with.
Mm. Can you just briefly, you mentioned root canal. What do you do in your dentistry right now instead of something like a root canal?
Typically, we just have the patients go for extraction and then either implant or bridge. It's just a little bit more biologic. Again, like I said, when it's the only part of our body that we try to save. So what's the sense of saving something that's dead, dying and decaying? Just get it out of there and replace it.
And would you briefly, besides root canals, describe the differences between Western dentistry and more natural dentistry, integrative dentistry?
Yeah, that's so the office I work at is called integrative dentistry. We're still a general dentist practice, so we still do cleanings, we still do fillings, we still do amalgam filling removals. We just have different techniques and different materials. So when we have patients that come in with old amalgam or silver restorations, they're still leaching that metal into their body. It's microflecking over time. And so we do a specific removal process. It's called SMART amalgam protocol. And the SMART is for safe mercury amalgam removal technique. We put our patients on fresh oxygen over their nose so that they are inhaling fresh oxygen. They're not getting any of the aerosols that are created when you're removing the amalgam. We rubber dam the tooth, or we isolate it so that it's in complete isolation. And then we use a special suction removal tool that sits right on top of the tooth so that all of the mercury and, again, all of the aerosols that are created, because you're using a drill that sprays water and then it creates, like a whirlwind. We're safely removing that so that the patient isn't exposed, and then the doctor and the assistant are not exposed. Because that's one of the biggest things too, is when you're doing amalgam removal in a traditional office, the dentist and the assistant are going to be exposed to some of the aerosols that are created from that. Some of the other things that we do, we use BPA-free fillings. So the composite or the tooth-colored fillings that you place onto the teeth, ours are all BPA-free. I will say and just recently in the last couple weeks, couple months, we've had a lot of patients asking us about nanotechnology in anesthetic. So far, the anesthetic that we use and that we have used in the past does not have any of the nanotechnology. Now, if that's something that they're going to try to infiltrate over time, we'll definitely keep our eyes and ears open for that. In the meantime, we still follow protocol with the type of anesthetic that we use. We look at the specific percentage of like epinephrine and based off of body weight, body height, what we can use for those people. So again, it's general dentistry. We're just looking at it in a different way. We look at the mouth as the oral pathway to the body. So what we're putting in our mouth, the type of bacteria that lives in our mouth, if you're prone to periodontal disease, if you're prone to increased caries, sometimes it is an actual biome issue in your mouth, which then in turn, you're ingesting some of those microbiome that can cause dysbiosis of the gut also. So we just kind of look at overall health. And I will say, again, so many wonderful doors have been opened for me in this opportunity. And then, yes, I still have my health challenges, but I've been able to help my patients kind of distinguish some of their own health ailments just by working in dentistry and going over their medical history. It's quite rewarding, very rewarding.
That's amazing. I'm so thankful that you've gone that direction. What an incredible opportunity. Um, what so let's get into helping other people see injury. Um, what how do you help someone see the negative health impact of the vaccine without falling into the trap of blaming everything on the shots?
That's a tough one. I mean, it really is a tough one. Like I said, some people don't even know that they're vaccine injured.
Right.
We have people emailing React19 daily, and they'll say, I really think that my mom's fill in the blank diagnosis has been from the vaccine. Or how do you correlate you had the vaccine and then 3 months later you're diagnosed with lupus? How do you do that? You you can't. It's really hard. Um, I'm really lucky that I had an immediate reaction. Again, I was trying to dismiss it and come up with excuses because I didn't believe that I could be vaccine injured. But when you look back, hindsight is always 2020. There's got to be something that happened either that moment that you received it that night, maybe even the next day, that you just didn't feel quite right. That's whenever you have to look back and kind of self-reflect and think, okay, there is a correlation. And that's what stinks, um, a lot of medical professionals out there that they if someone is diagnosed with something a little later after a vaccine reaction, they don't even want to look at it at all. There is no correlation whatsoever unless it was an immediate reaction, maybe even within an hour. But some people don't report that reaction even within an hour. Um, Unfortunately, as Americans, we're stubborn. And I think that's a problem, especially with men, because a lot of times they'll just cover things up for a while. And as it's
Yes.
fine, I'm going to get through this. I'm tough. And then something bad happens. So I mean, that's a tough question to have to answer. But I think that people really need to kind of focus and listen to their bodies. I think that's a big thing that I didn't do either. I wasn't listening to my body. I kept dismissing, dismissing, dismissing. And it wasn't until I came to grips of reality that I was vaccine injured that I could put the mental with the physical and then start working on a journey to how I could fix myself and make myself better.
For someone who has just realized that they're probably COVID vaccine injured, or really any vaccine injured at this
Mhm.
point, but what should they do? How should they proceed?
I think the best information that I still give people that do come to either the Facebook group or to React19 is you've got to find a provider that will listen to you. And once you find that provider that will listen to you, they will help you get the correct help that you need. And you know what? Some people may have or have had anxiety in the past, and it is just fueling the thoughts and the issues of vaccine reaction. So sometimes people really do need that type of help as well. But once you find someone that will actually listen to you and help you get onto that path, you're golden. That's the first step is just and if the first guy or girl doesn't listen, go to the next and go to the next and go to the next until you find your guy. I mean, I saw over 20 different providers through my vaccine reaction and I had two that believed me. Two.
Oh, wow. Ugh,
So that if you have to, just keep going to the next. And again, I'm not going to say that functional medicine is going to help at all. It did in my case, but just sometimes finding someone outside of the realm of Western medicine can be beneficial.
absolutely. So, what are the other strengths of React 19? I know they connect people with others who have similar injuries or different ones. You're bouncing ideas off of each other. What else does React 19 provide?
Oh my goodness. It as I said, from the inception, and I hate to use this analogy because my dad was in the military, my stepmom was in the military, my grandfather was in the military. They have served our country and they've served it well. Um, my grandfather was the only one that was out on battlefield, World War II, but he was injured in World War II. Guess what? When he was injured, he didn't turn his back. He still went out and helped everyone else. And I think that's what we've had to do. We are injured, helping injured. We were injured out on the battlefield. And guess what? We didn't turn around and cry. We went back out to get everybody else that was injured. That's what React19 is. We are there. We are COVID vaccine injured, helping COVID vaccine injured. And on top of that, we have opened up our realm and space for those that think that they have long COVID. The Long COVID Association kind of wanted to dismiss vaccine injured at first. We wanted to kind of correlate with them because, again, a lot of individuals that have had just the active COVID infection do still have some of the same reactions and same diagnosis that we have had as vaccine injured. There is a correlation. So we opened up our arms to them as well. But we are there to tell your story. If you have a story to tell, we're going to tell it. We're there to help with the mental, the physical, the spiritual aspects. We created the React19 Care Fund. It is a fund that is solely based off of donations. We have anyone can donate. I've donated myself. You go in, you donate whatever you can give. That money goes directly into the Care Fund account. It's a special account for vaccine injured. We have applicants that apply, and they are all the PHI, personal health information, is taken off. As the advisory board and the executive board, those are presented, the applicants are presented, and we find whether their application is on the basis of a monetary compensation. And I know I should have looked before I got on again to have my dates right, but I know not that long ago we had already surpassed giving $1 million to vaccine injured. And we are doing that we've given more than our government has given through the CICP and the VICP program, which is astounding. We are just normal. We are all volunteers. React19 is comprised of all volunteers. No one gets paid to work on our board at all. We do it out of the graciousness of our heart. We have people that come together bi-weekly at our meetings. We have someone that's in charge of government affairs. We have someone that's in charge of research. We have someone that's in charge of advocacy, helping others. We have someone that's in charge of doing newsletters and checking the emails. And I've been the secretary for over 3 years now. It may not seem like a big role, but I'm keeping track of board minutes every meeting. I'm filing things that need to be done digitally because we all work in different states. We've banded together and created this organization and in this office construct with people from all over the country. It works beautifully. It's just an amazing thing to actually see great humans come together out of the goodness of their heart, volunteer their time and their talents to serving others.
Yes. You all have an incredible organization. Thank you for doing what you're doing for the vaccine injured. I have one final question for you. We could go on and on, but I have one final question for you. If the average American citizen could do one thing to combat the corruption that we have witnessed in our country over the past 5 years now, what would it be?
Just listen. Just to listen. I mean, spend 5 minutes talking with a neighbor, someone at church, someone from the school. I think more people have been impacted by COVID and vaccine injury than most people want to lead on. I really think that's the biggest thing is stop the hate, stop the pointing fingers, stop the gaslighting, stop the ghosting. We just want transparency from the very get-go in all of this. When I very first filed to do the study with NIH, when I very first wanted to do the Senator Johnson roundtable discussion, I wanted the truth to come out. I wanted the truth to come out so that people could make the decision on their own what they needed to do for themselves and for their families. I never wanted to stop the vaccine rollout. I've never wanted to stop any of the correct information from getting out. I've never been misinformation, although I've been censored on Facebook. I've been censored from videos. I've been shadow banned. I mean, you name it. It's ridiculous what just myself, along with others, have had to go through with all of the vaccine injury information. So if you would just give yourself 5 minutes to listen to some of the stories and realize that we are real people. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to believe, to be believed. I think people could open up their heart. and just know that that's all we've ever been fighting for is just truth and transparency.
I've asked this how many times? About 84 times in every single interview I have done. And I think you're the first one to say, listen. Usually the answer, which I would agree with, is speak up, speak loudly. But this is a component that is very, very important. I know in society, people are so busy, they don't listen. It's easier to speak than to listen sometimes. So excellent words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristi, for coming on with me today. It was good to meet you.
Well, I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe to, and share our podcasts. I'll see you next week.